After the big success of the first film, a sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer was fast-tracked and put into theaters in 1998, titled I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. And it quickly killed the franchise. But is it really as bad as people make it out to be? What's up, guys, and welcome back to my I Know What You Did Last Summer review series, and we are quickly approaching 4th of July, so hope you guys got some great plans for this weekend. Now, as far as this sequel, this is just like the first film and a movie that I actually watched quite a bit in the 90s. It was always on HBO or Cinemax or one of those channels, and so I actually watched this sequel more often than I watched the first film back when I was a kid. Now, at the time of release, and certainly over time, this sequel has been given a very bad reputation. It all but killed the franchise, and where the first film is pretty highly regarded as a 90s slasher that helped revitalize that genre alongside the first Scream, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is quite often brought up as an example of those movies that the Scream films are making fun of. Now, while I would not call this a good movie, I would not call this a very successful sequel to the first film, and I have plenty of grievances with it that I will get into, I've always felt it to be a little bit overhated. So getting into my positives regarding I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, overall, I think this is a perfectly fine 90s slasher. Now, you have to be a fan of the genre to know what I mean by that. I think if you don't like horror and you don't like slashers, you're gonna think this is an absolute garbage movie like most of the films in this genre. But if you enjoy a slasher for all of its faults and all the times that it can be really good, this is a movie that I think is just fine. It's a bunch of 20-somethings that are on this remote, beautiful location while this serial killer goes around and takes people out one by one over a 90-minute runtime. It's quick, it's efficient, it's fairly entertaining, it gets in, it gets out. It mostly does the job of what you would expect a lower-end slasher film to do. I do think that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. are both very good in this sequel. I think Freddie Prinze Jr. is actually much better in this movie than he was in the first film. And Julie James is still a character that I enjoy. I still think that she's a good final girl. She's a character that you identify with. She's a very grounded, realistic person. And I think that when you're focusing on those two and their relationship especially, you do sympathize with them. You do want them to make it through this situation alive. And that's one of the worst things that you can have is a slasher film to where you don't identify with any character and don't care if any of them make it out alive. And while I still don't think that the kills go near as far as they should, I am a gore hound, I prefer it to be a little bit more violent than some of these movies give me, I think that the kills and the gore is slightly better done in this movie than it was in the first time. It's a little bit more brutal, it's a little bit more mean, and I enjoy that. As far as the mixed aspects, I might get a lot of confused faces when I say this, but part of me kind of enjoys Jack Black's character of Titus. He's, in a lot of ways, the worst part of this movie, but in a lot of ways, he's the most memorable part of this movie.
Damn it, man, you scared the shit out of me. You're living your life in fear, bro.
I mean, even Scary Movie 2, no, it was the first one. Scary Movie 1 makes a little pass at his character that's like, oh, I just want to fucking kill that guy. A lot of people have despised his character for being annoying, for being ridiculous, for being just tonally out of whack with this movie. And you're not wrong. But I think I'm just incapable of hating Jack Black. No matter how ridiculous he can be, no matter how out of place he is in the movie, I still smile when that dreaded motherfucker walks on the screen. So as bad of a written character as that is, and as hammed up as Jack Black plays it, there's part of me that always enjoys his contribution to this franchise. Now moving on to the negatives, and there is a lot of things wrong with this movie. They fast-tracked it. It's not Kevin Williamson writing it. It's not the same director. It came out a year later, so they probably threw this script together in a matter of like a month, and it shows. This thing is 100% a retread of the first film. It's in a new setting, there's some new characters, but it's basically beat for beat the same exact thing. There's a killer on the loose, taking people out one by one, leaving these notes saying, I still know, and it's a half-assed mystery of who the killer is going to be, even though it's fucking blatantly obvious, but we'll get into all of that. beat for beat, for the most part, this movie is the same thing.
2 summers ago, we hit Ben Willis with our car and then we threw his body in the water. Can you not tell me the whole story? I'm your best friend.
There's even scenes that are directly out of the first film. I mean, Julie James yet again has a whole, "What are you waiting for?" Like the whole scene yet again, and it's just like, guys, nobody does that twice in their lifetime. I'm sorry. And ultimately, the plot of this movie just makes absolutely no sense. The first film, you have these kids that hit this person on the road, they throw him into the ocean to hide the evidence, and a year later, he comes back for revenge to take them all out. And there's backstory to that about his motives for why he was already a killer and all that makes it a little more interesting. But nonetheless, that's the plot of the first film. You get into this one, and the killer has this whole plot to where he rents out hotel, he rents out part of this island, he buys plane tickets and first class and all these things to put the facade that these characters have won this island getaway. 4 characters, by the way, this island getaway to get Julie James specifically on this island and isolated so that he can finally wipe out the last person and get his full revenge. Because at the beginning of the film, he assumes that he kills Ray. Takes him out just right there in his own town. The same setting as the first film. But yet he goes through this entire convoluted plan to get Julie James isolated enough to finally kill her. As if her on the college campus that she's in is not isolated enough. Like, if he really wanted to kill both of them, he could have killed her as easily as he almost killed Ray. So it's never made any sense to me why you're going to include all these other random people just for the sake of it, include your son as like a sleeper cell to make all this huge, gigantic, massive, like James Bond villain plan to get her onto this island while the storm comes so that she can't escape and you could finally kill her in the rain. It's just way too ridiculous. It's way too convoluted. And even though I get that it's a slasher film, so you kind of want this to happen, it never made any sense to me why the fisherman is going around and killing all these random people on the island. You have the first film to where, unless I'm forgetting one, the only people that got killed that weren't a part of the 4 people he was trying to get revenge on was when he killed Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. And that was just to take out the red herring and put him in display in this trunk to let him know, hey, the person you think it is, yeah, it ain't him, bitch. You get to this one and there's just all these random employees on this little resort. There's dock hands, there's Jack Black's character, there's like the concierge, there's the bartender, and he's just killing them left and right, the fucking housekeeper, and it's just like, dude, what did they do? Like, why are you killing everybody else and leaving Julie James alive until last? It just doesn't make any sense. And one of the biggest missing aspects to this sequel that I think worked very well in the first film is that entire mystery, is the use of red herrings. The entire mystery of who the killer is in this movie is not a fucking mystery. They play it like it is. They try to make you believe that maybe it's not Ben Willis. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's somebody that's tied to this and somebody we never knew. No. It's fucking Ben Willis. It's obvious from the beginning of the movie. They don't set up any effective red herrings. They don't set up any other path than it being Ben Willis, to the point when you get to the end, it's like, yeah, no shit. And so that entire part of the story just has no effectiveness, and it comes across very silly, to where they're arguing with each other and they're pointing the finger. It could be him, it could be them, and you're like, no, this is stupid. You know who it is, we know who it is. Why are you even bothering trying to trick me? Just embrace that it's Ben Willis and fucking have that dude on display the entire movie. And it does not help matters whatsoever that they actually go for that plot twist regarding Will Benson. My God, if there's anything in this movie that nobody can ever defend to me, it's that plot twist, where not only is that guy annoying the entire movie, and if anybody is the obvious outlier, it's him, just because of how awkward that he is in this situation. But when you get to that line to where he reveals that he's involved and he's like, what? Come on, Julie, think about it. Will Benson? Ben, son. I'm like, dude, do you really think that was fucking clever? Get the fuck, just kill me. Just kill me. That insults me so much, I want to die. You're trying to get us to buy in that him and his dad came up with this little pseudonym that was a hint the entire time. The answer was always there. What the fuck?
That's fucking stupid, Ben.
I really don't like the fact that Freddie Prinze Jr. gets sidelined in the story yet again in this one. I like his story more in this because he's on that revenge path. I think his acting is a little bit better, and you're rooting for him the entire time to get there in time to be able to save Julie or anybody else that's left alive. But I really did want a movie with those two together the entire time. He was always just kind of like this side character that popped up, this whole subplot that's off to the side in both of these movies. But honestly, the movie's biggest detriment, in my opinion, is that aside from the two returning characters of Julie James and Ray, everybody else in this movie that we're forced to focus on is some of the most annoying, insufferable characters that I've seen in slashers. You got Mekhi Phifer's character, who is just this loud, cocky guy that just never shuts the fuck up. He's always bitching and complaining. He never believes anything. He's always wanting to go his own way, won't listen to reason, all the way up to the point when he gets fucking killed. And so I like Mekhi Phifer, but I just want him to shut the fuck up in this movie. And then you got Brandy's character, who is one of the most insufferable friends I've ever seen. Like, this chick is not only a cockblock for Ray, but she is like the most uncomfortable and disrespectful, pushy person that I've ever seen, to where I don't understand how the fuck Julie is a friend of hers, because every freaking turn of the movie, she's just shoving Will in front of her face like, come on, fuck him, please, go with him, do him. Right from the beginning of the movie, she's talking about it. She's like, no, you don't need Ray. He's not there. He's off working and making a career for himself. Fuck that guy. Go with this weird-ass guy. You go to a club and she tries to force them together there. You get the trip and she tries to force them together again. They're trying to disperse the rooms and she forces her to room with him. The whole movie, I'm like, dude, she sucks. And then we've touched on Will. Will's just annoying. He's so desperate. Even if you look at him as being a red herring, you don't think that he's actually involved. He's just so desperate to get with Jennifer Love Hewitt, which I get, I could sympathize with. He's so desperate that it just comes across as annoying and pathetic. And it's like, dude, she will never, ever like a guy like you. Even if Ray comes up to be the biggest asshole in the world, you're never getting past the friend zone because you're just so awkwardly friendly. Like, even when he's in the Jeep and they're all getting ready to go on the trip and he looks at her, he's just like, I'm here. I don't know why I'm here, but please touch it. All in all, guys, it's a flawed as hell sequel. I understand why a lot of people don't like it. It's certainly not a movie that I would ever defend or die on a hill for, but I do think that it has more entertainment value than a lot of people give it credit for. Perfectly fine 90s slasher film, but nowhere near good enough to keep this franchise going. All right, guys, that's it for this review. If you have not already checked out my review of the original, I'm going to stick that one up here. I'm also going to put a playlist for my recent horror tier list, so please check that out. Like and share this video and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my review for I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Thank you for watching, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.